beauty of quick commerce is you are able to identify micro categories and capitalize on them. Dude, I spent 5 years building this category on Amazon and Blinkit beat it in a month. 40% of the sleep supplements in Delhi happens to 10% of the dark stores. Now, if 10% of the localities in Bombay account for 40% of the energy prices. So for you as a brand, it is not just about how you are doing. It is also important to keep all your competitions in your rearview mirror as well. One metric which we obsess about in GobbleCube is the growth that the brands have achieved since the time they moved on to GobbleCube. That number, by the way, is sitting at 220%. While I know everybody loves talking about product market fit and it is like the biggest buzzword in town, I personally think it is overrated.
On the brand side, there's also this narrative that it is difficult to profitably grow on some of these channels. Margin structures are tough, platforms control they have a lot of buying power today. Tough margins that they charge are very, very interesting to sort of debate. Are brands able to profitably grow on these platforms? Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of
01 Network by Zerodha.
Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Jivraj, and today I have with me an extremely special guest. Join me in welcoming Manas Gupta, who's the co-founder and CEO of GobbleCube. GobbleCube is this phenomenal company that powers a bunch of brands, some of your most loved ones in the country today. In this conversation, we're going to decode how brands are performing in this quick commerce world. Is this even real? How are their growth rates? Who's consuming what? And we will understand how Manas took the leap of faith from being a senior leader at Blinkit, previously Grofers, and then started GobbleCube. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for an incredible conversation ahead. Hey Manas, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jivraj. Pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited to be doing this because in the brief I've gotten to know you, I have learned so much from you about how brands are doing, on what platform, how are they growing, what are their levers. And I got first connected to you when you were starting GobbleCube, and I heard great things back then, and now I've gotten to know you. I want to capture all of those learnings in this conversation today. Where I want to start this is we'll come to a bunch of things that you've done. We want to cover the Grofers, Blinkit journey, what you were doing before that, how you started GobbleCube. But I think one of the major phenomena in your time of starting up since 2022 to now has been quick commerce as a wave, right? This new like $10 billion and plus of value that has been unlocked that did not exist 4 years back. And now we've, of course, like I don't think 99% of my purchases are, for instance, on quick commerce. How has the world changed, right? Like what is consumption like in this world? What has quick commerce done for e-commerce brands in the country? If you can give us a quick overview of that, I think that'll be a great point to start, and then we'll go deeper.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Jivraj. I think quick commerce, the way I think about it, is nothing but a kirana store with a digital footprint. So, as a consumer, it gives you the convenience of a kirana store where you don't need to plan ahead in time. You're able to immediately get whatever you want. But at the same time, from a brand point of view, it creates this natural digital trail, which if you're able to decode, you can make so much sense about the individual shopper behaviors, right? I'll give you an example. Did you know that 40% of the sleep supplements in Delhi, the sale of supplements in Delhi, happens to 10% of the dark stores? Now, if you're a brand which is selling in this category, knowing what those localities are is phenomenal information, right? Because one, you can be extremely focused on your quick commerce and really win the battle, but also it can drive your offline strategy as a brand, right? And I think these are these demand patterns which always existed, but were never being able to make sense of. And that's what's kind of creating this thing, right? But this is the brand lens, right? If I put the shopper lens on it, right? I think the journey has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think as Grofers, as we transitioned into Blinkit, this is again something which we saw very first hand, right? How consumers were loving the convenience and how the retention rates were moving from a 25-30%, which existed in the next day delivery model, to a 70% plus, right? In a quick commerce model. And I think that for us was the penny drop, saying, okay, this is where the holy grail sits.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think life has changed after Quick for so many brands and customers. Let's maybe take a step back. Why don't you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey? You came back after leaving a big heavy package to India, and started working with Grofers back when quick commerce wasn't a thing. Commerce was just getting started. I think Flipkart became a unicorn in 13. So then sort of Grofers in 2016 sort of had just come up. Big Basket was there. What was life back then? Because I mean, a lot of our listeners may not even be very familiar with that world. And how did you make your decisions in your career? Would be lovely to know.
Yeah, so Jivraj, I come from a very small town in India called Jabalpur. Not a lot of people know about that. And when you come from a small town, your expectations are very simple when you begin with, right? First of all, acha, crack your IIT, get your IIT done, right? So I got into IIT, got into mechanical. I realized that is not my cup of tea. So went to CAT, got into IIM Bangalore, realized, okay, the best paying job which gets you a life abroad is investment banking. So went into investment banking. So a lot of times in the early stages of your career, you're just kind of like going along the path which is the most tread upon path, right? But I think at some point in my career, I worked for UBS for 5 years in London, then moved to Hong Kong with Credit Suisse. But I realized that I enjoy building things way more than I enjoy trading. It was actually quite serendipitous because I was building out the arbitrage models and working very closely with the dev team to build out these ARB models. I was like, I just enjoy this way more. And that was for me the penny drop saying, okay, I want to do something where I'm building things. And that's where I got connected with Albinder. Uh, and the simple statement, I was like, okay, what is my job description? He's like, come on over. Like, leave Hong Kong, come to India. We're solving something really phenomenal. I was like, what is my job description? He's like, you see, there are everything that is broken over here. Why don't you take a look, prioritize what is the most important, and go ahead and solve it? And I think that is the attitude which I really respect Albi and Saurabh. This is the attitude that they inculcated in us, which pushed us to operate as owners, as founders in the organization, right? I think that was my journey, taking that leap of faith, coming back to India, working with Grofers. And I think from that, because of this autonomy and ownership that we operated with, at the time when we kind of transitioned into Blinkit, there were so many ideas in our head about the opportunities that are opening up, that the challenges that are opening up. Is where again I went to Albi. I said, yeah, I need this opportunity to go out and explore an opportunity of my own, right? And trust me, if it doesn't work out, I will come back to you, right? And I will start working for Blinkit again. I think that's the kind of trust and faith that we've built in this ecosystem.
Well, that's amazing. From a trend capturing lens, I mean, you first saw the e-commerce trend, then you saw the quick commerce trend. Was there anything particular that stood out? Like, can you time the market well enough for some of this? How do you look at like mental models on what to build? Leaving Blinkit was also, of course, like a hard challenge because I'm guessing the growth after that, like the trade-off of staying versus starting something by yourself must have been major. What was the mental model to navigate some of that?
I think there is a philosophy, right? And it's a very VC philosophy, which is the why this, why now, why you. And I know a lot of times it is kind of like ridiculed a little bit, but I do find it extremely relevant, right? So I ask those questions to myself, right? Yes, you're absolutely right. You like the growth curve that quick commerce has seen has been absolutely phenomenal. And like you would have had a comfortable life staying back as well. But the opportunity from a brand lens, right? Quick commerce is solving a lot of problems from a shopper point of view, but it is also creating these ton of data, which is a gold mine for a brand if you decode that, right? And I think that was the mindset for us saying, okay, there is value in solving this problem. Uh, why this? Why now? Because this is where this explosion, this is this inflection point which is getting created where commerce is going from being a centralized commerce system to a distributed commerce system, right? It is not about these big box warehouses, it is about these small dark stores which resemble a kirana store, right? And why us? Because we are the guys who actually built this framework out. So there is nobody better in the world to actually solve this than people who've kind of built this out. That was kind of like the mental model that we started with building.
Got it. Let's get into the GobbleCube journey. Can you like very quickly demystify for us what all do you do? Who's your ideal sort of customer? How does that work for those who may not be familiar? And then we'll go deeper as to like what is the specific thing to solve for brands? Where are they struggling? And if a founder is watching today who wants to optimize their sort of let's say quick commerce journey, how do we navigate that?
Absolutely. So, put very simply, GobbleCube is the platform which brands can use to grow on quick com channels and grow profitably. Because today, when you think of it from a brand perspective, there are three things that are North Stars for them, right? It is offtake growth, it is category share, and it is profitability, right? Which is marketing ROI. So those are the three biggest problems that brands are solving for today, right? And when you think about any system that you need to excel in, you need to understand the data points that exist, right? And I'll give you a quick anecdote. This is a lazy Saturday evening where I and my co-founder Shri were hanging out with Anish, who's the CRO of Blinkit, right? And while we understood that there is this plethora of data points and you need to make sense of that, so we kind of built out these dashboards, right? And we're doing user testing with Anish. So we kind of showed him all this dashboard and like super chuffed, expecting a great feedback. And the simple retort from Anish was like, all this is well and good, but what is the so what of this data? And I was honestly taken aback for a moment. I was like, what do you mean, Anish? I was like, what is the so what, right? How do I look at this and build a strategy that helps me grow, right? Until I find that answer, this is just a bunch of meaningless numbers to me. And I think that became core to the philosophy with which we are building GobbleCube today, right? Every feature that we build at GobbleCube is geared towards answering a growth problem from a brand perspective. And I think that's been our evolution. It has been a phenomenal journey for us. We launched the product. So we worked with a bunch of our design partners like Nivea, Whole Truth, Godesi. We launched the product in September of last year. So we are only about less than a year in the making. And in this period of time, we've onboarded close to 300 brands. Rarely happens in the Indian SaaS ecosystem. So I think truly kind of shot in the arm towards what we're trying to build.
No, absolutely. Like, I mean, for me, the best part has been anytime I've connected you to any sort of brand owner,
Yes.
they've just naturally, said they've converted small, large, doesn't matter, but they've just seen the value. And I think to have such great product market fit for like sort of a software tool in sort of Indian, sort of for Indian brands, which has always been questioned, is incredible. Let's maybe simplify this further, right? So let's say I'm a brand. I want to grow on quick commerce, but these platforms are currently a black box to me because I don't know what exactly is happening. How do I grow profitably? I'm not sure. Where do I spend money? I'm not sure. Uh, I come to you. What all will you help me decode? Where am I not looking? What can I do further? Like, how does the journey work? Like, I mean, I'm a brand. Let's say I'm doing, 1 to 2 crores a month right now. How does GobbleCube help me?
Absolutely. So let's first take a problem first view to this, right? And let's then get into how GobbleCube is solving for it, right? So if I am a brand today selling on any of the quick commerce or e-commerce platforms, right? As we talked about, my North Star metrics is offtake, it is category share. The reason why I keep harping about category share is because you're fundamentally selling on a marketplace. The growth of the marketplace is not something that you control, right? So if the marketplace grows 20% the category grows 20% month on month and you grew by 10%, it's not a great outcome for you, right? You've actually lost category share. And that's why those are the outcome North Star metrics that you care about as a brand. Now, what are the input levers, right, that you have in your hands to actually control these, right? Well, first and foremost, you've got availability. Jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai, right? The second is share of voice, right? How do you spend on marketing to make sure that you're pushing your products against competition across a host of keywords that people are searching for? Because these are all search-based platforms, right? When I am coming to get something in 10 minutes, I need it now. I am not browsing through categories. And of course, pricing becomes an important element, definitely for some categories more than others. Now, the other very important thing to note over here is that there is a lack of brand loyalty, right? Because again, go back to the day when you're walking to a Kirana store and you say, I want a Maggi ketchup. And his answer is, Bhaiya, Maggi ketchup to nahi hai, kisan chahiye kya? Right? And because you have immediacy as a use case, you want to fulfill that need right now, you will happily switch. And that's something which is very similarly playing out in the quick commerce space, right? So for you as a brand, it is not just about how you are doing. It is also important to keep all your competitions in your rearview mirror as well and strategize accordingly, right? So you need to put all these data points together. But again, this is where it fundamentally becomes a big data problem because you're talking about 5,000 plus and counting dark stores, right? Blinkit has about 1,500 dark stores. Instamart and Swiggy have about 1,100 each. BB now is about 700. Flipkart is a similar number as well, right? So you're talking about 5,000 plus dark stores, thousands of keywords, tons of competition, right? You need answers. As a brand, a very simple way to think about it is I walk into the office today in the morning and do I have a list of 5 most important things that I need to work on? And I've got an AI agent in GobbleCube who's kind of solving all those things, crunching all the data, but just telling me these are the 5 things that you need to do to grow today. And that I think is the idea of GobbleCube.
Amazing. That clarifies it very, very well. Like I think I'm also even more clear about the
Yes.
product now, especially levers around availability, category, and how can I grow, right? Like I think that's the biggest question for emerging brands. I'd love to understand how legacy brands versus new age brands are off taking on the platform, right? Like, are there specific learnings to say that, okay, I don't know, Marico or Dairy, all of these, like, there are these large brands and then there are the
Yes.
whole truths of the country, right? Now, I mean, this channel is available for all. In a Kirana store, I'm
Absolutely.
going for the Purana brands and I'm going for the newer brands.
Yes.
How have you seen adoption across sort of the categories for, like, if you had to make a comparison?
I think it is such a big opportunity that QCOM has opened up because what it has done is it has leveled the distribution field,
Yeah.
right? Because if I am a fundamentally entrenched brand, right? I'm a large FMCG, I control the offline distribution,
Yeah.
right? But here it is all leveled, right?
Everybody is equal.
And what it has done is as a platform also, right? Whether it is a Blinkit, Instamart, or Zepto, I've created this level playing field. I've also created a constraint in terms of the storage because fundamentally, quick commerce is not something where you have this 10 lakh square foot warehouse where you can put all the inventory that you want. So it is forcing brands to be smart about how they are dealing with their inventory, right? How the days of inventory that they're running, how they're kind of making sure that the inventory is distributed in the right locations. I'll give you another example, right? Take energy bars and the example of Bombay. 10% of the localities in Bombay account for 40% of the energy bar sales. Again, a number which is very similar to the one that we discussed about sleep supplements. You need to get those right, right? And that's where the smartness comes in. Because yes, I might have a pull for an existing brand that I have been using, but if these are things that I get, it isn't easy to make a switch, right? Another thing which becomes very important from a consumer psyche point of view, and this is something which we saw firsthand as part of my journey at Blinkit, right, is the consistency of the experience. So I might love a brand and I might love the price at which I'm getting, but if I'm not getting it consistently, because let's face it, right? Most of the products on quick commerce are repeat purchases, right? I will keep coming back every few weeks, every few months to purchase it again. And if I cannot find it consistently, I will make a switch, right? And this is the opportunity. And you see that in the numbers, right? While storied companies like Mamaearth and Sugar had hit that 100 CR mark, and every one of us was so proud about that, right? But look at how quickly brands are accelerating and hitting that 100 CR mark today,
Yeah.
right? Now you can call it correlation, you can call it causation, but I think QCOM has got a big role to play over there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Let's maybe understand categories a bit better, right? Like,
Yes.
because I think what blows my mind as like a first principle thinker is there are so many of these categories which are otherwise not getting the right growth, not getting the right consumption, the right channel, like food and beverage or sexual sort of wellness products or many others like that, that because of quick commerce have now just exploded, right? What have your learnings, because you get like platform overview, what have your learnings been on the category side? Like which categories are performing better than others? Which are some counterintuitive categories that we never felt? Like, I mean, I've felt that about protein bread, right? Like, I mean, how is that becoming a big category? A lot of people are capturing it. What are your learnings on that, Manas?
So you're absolutely right, Jivraj. See, there are the obvious categories like chips, cold drinks, chocolates, and the likes, right? But I think what genuinely blows our mind is the so many other categories which have come up. Puja needs, right? Let us take one of the most interesting categories, right? Now, for me, even as I was part of Grofers, right? For me, the first thought that puja needs invokes is something like a Mangaldeep Agarbatti,
Yeah.
right? But let me tell you, puja needs today is approximately a 40 CR category, right? A 40 crore category just on quick commerce platforms, right? Uh, During the peak season, which we are about to hit, it'll become close to a 100 crore category. And this is not agarbattis, right? I'll tell you the beauty of quick commerce is you are able to identify micro categories and capitalize on them. So a micro category within puja needs is dresses. Now, what does that mean? Dresses is how you will decorate your Radha, Krishna, Lakshmi, and Ganesh, and that is a 2 CR plus category a month, right? Who would have imagined that? And again, if you look at the e-commerce landscape, right, there are two biggest players in India. One always focused on the head SKUs, which were basically the mobile phones and stuff. The other one focused on the assortment piece, right? But when you think about the long tail assortment, right, it is not just about getting the assortment, it is how quickly you are getting it. Because people, when they think about long tail assortment, is probably when they need it right now, right? And that is the beauty that quick commerce is creating. In fact, we are launching a festival playbook pretty soon where we're talking about so many of these things, right? Event based purchases on quick commerce is absolutely next level. We work with a big jewelry brand, right? And one of the statements that they made was
They must have launched coins.
they launched coins. They were also doing these jewelries, right? So for them, the big days was Karwa Chauth and Dhanteras, right? And it was absolutely gangbusters. It was like a 10x jump in their sale. The most memorable comment that the head of e-commerce there made when he met me after this was, dude, I spent 5 years building this category on Amazon and Blinkit beat it in a month.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I think that's the kind of demand surges that quick commerce creating. But again, what becomes important is how quickly can you recognize those? Because trust me, right? When you think of it from a supply point of view, a 10x surge is not easy to handle. You need to be aware about it and you need to be extremely prepared and agile to solve that. I think the systems that the QCom players have built in India are genuinely agile, but you need to capitalize and act on it as well as a brand.
Absolutely. No, this is amazing. What are some other categories? Because we keep hearing about like health, we keep hearing about like maybe apparel growing, right? Like because we didn't think that people will be buying like, I don't know, swimsuits or like athleisure of quick commerce 2 to 3 years back, but that's happening, right? All of purchase, like the traditional e-commerce wallet is now coming to sort of quick commerce. How have you seen some other categories evolve?
I think the categories are like you talked about apparel, right? 100 CR plus category on quick commerce, right? You're absolutely right. You wouldn't imagine that I would go and buy a pair of shorts or a pair of joggers on quick commerce, right? But it is happening. And it alludes to the fact that one, uh, people are fundamentally forgetful, including you and me. But it also is just like it becomes kind of your natural destination, right? Another very interesting category are things like your durables, right? Your things like your fans. I mean, we're sitting in Gurgaon right now, right? Winters are approaching us. Air purifiers, heaters, right? Absolutely gangbusters categories, right? Because again, if I am sitting in a Gurgaon cold evening and I'm shivering, I want that oil heater to come to me in the next 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something which is really picking up, which is where it started with the head. But if you look at any dark store today, it generally gives you an assortment of almost 14 to 15,000 SKUs. Just for reference, a normal kirana would give you about 5 to 600, right? That's the kind of assortment that you're talking about. And again, I cannot overemphasize the amount of technology that has gone in from the platform side to kind of make this experience happen. How can you pull this off in a 2 to 3,000 foot dark store is absolutely mind blowing. But the reality is that we've achieved that. And that is the beauty of the shopper experience that has been created. And that is the reason why categories like protein powders, categories like sleep supplements, these are categories that are just opening up. Luggage, right? Who would have imagined people would be buying their travel suitcases of these platforms? But yeah, these are the ones which are doing gangbusters.
No, absolutely. I was headed to the US and I had to buy a bag and I bought it off Blinkit because I just realized it like 2 hours before leaving and there's no option. Like you think about going to a shop, buying versus this experience. And yeah, Mukobara is always available. So it's great to see these brands come up.
It is phenomenal. And another thing that comes to mind is the fact that let's imagine you're approaching Rakhi or you're approaching Diwali, right? Now, the thing with e-commerce, and we experience that same thing, right? As Grofers, our demand tapered off T-2 to Diwali, right? Because your promise times have exceeded and you're now delivering after Diwali. So as a user, there is no value for me to go to that platform and look for things, right? Because all I care about is what I can do in Diwali, right? The curve on quick commerce is absolutely the opposite, right? Because uh, 2 hours to Diwali, right? I have to prepare for a puja and I need all these things, right? Now, the two options that I have is I take the car out, struggle through traffic to get hold of some of these things, or I just order it on one of these platforms, right? And I think that is another thing that brands are becoming more and more cognizant about, right? That demand surges, right? Whether it is about gold coins prior to Dhanteras or these necklaces prior to a Karwa Chauth, right?
Yeah.
It's a God's
Kurtas before Holi.
kurtas before Holi is uh, the necklaces are a godsend for husbands, by
Oh
the way.
yeah. I'm guessing gifting as a category is also like really exploded, right? Because now to
Yeah.
send gifts is like
So
easier
easy.
than ever. Like you just
Yeah.
need an address.
I think perfumes have exploded because of that. So I think I see more of those gifting perfumes
Perfumes,
now.
3-4
The
packs, the
pack of
trial
three and the
packs.
pack of the trial packs is just absolutely taken off and taken the world by storm. And there's so many startups doing such a wonderful job when it
Yeah.
comes to that, right?
No, that's awesome. I think just, I mean, proactive inventory planning is sort of the insight that I don't think is very like common, right? Like, but if you have access to data and then you can make something out of it, I think that really works. If I'm a founder today, I'm just getting started. How much should I also keep in point like pricing and like searchability? Like, should I have to innovate a lot because that used to be the sort of exterior advice, right? Like you have to really build a really, really strong product. But here it feels like if you can build a product that people are already searching for, innovate a little, that works.
Yeah.
Pricing, how much of that is still important? Like sometimes people say that AOVs are lower, not as common, sort of like e-commerce AOVs are higher. Are these myths that are actually true, or what do you think about that?
I think, as you said, they're just myths, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, see, there are, of course, categories, right? A category like a garbage bag or a napkin will always be an extremely price sensitive category,
Sure.
right? But you look at a category like serums, right? Nobody looks at the price when they're buying serums, right? But what is more important is, as a brand, how you look at that category. So, I'll give you, let's take the example of serums, right? Hair serums le lete. hain. If you go back about like 5 to 6 years back, right, serums meant shine. They meant frizz. So you had the Levons and the Streaks of the world, which were all like shine serums, right? If you look at what happened over the last year, today, when you look at hair serums as a category, 50% of that is growth serums. The likes of Wish Care and Plum and all those guys, right? The minimalists of the world. They're the ones which are ruling the roost. But that it doesn't end over there because as a brand, there are multiple questions that you need to ask after that. Okay, fine. I know growth serums is the right category to be in. What kind of concentration? Let's take face serums, right? Do I go for a 10% concentration or a 17%, 16% concentration, right? Do I go for depigmentation? Do I go for fairness? Do I go for pimples, right? Do I create a kojic acid or an alpha arbutin or a niacinamide or a vitamin C, right? These are fundamental questions, and these are questions that a brand would spend months, the R&D teams and the brands would spend months answering them. What quick commerce and GobbleCube are enabling is to answer those questions with data at the click of a button, right? Because you don't need to debate. Ultimately, the shopper has spoken,
Yeah.
right? And as long as you can understand what the shopper is trying to tell you, you're golden.
Yeah. The other question that came up with brands is the common narrative that like these quick commerce platforms are very non-search oriented and objective oriented may not stand true for categories like apparel, which may be browser oriented, right? Which may be browsing oriented rather.
Absolutely.
How is that also changing? Is like time spent or like repeats or like how is like customer behavior on these channels evolving? Is it still very much objective oriented that this is what I want? Or is it also transforming to them becoming more okay to try a new brand that they are seeing and like surfing more?
So you're absolutely right, Jivraj. I think as these platforms started out, they were fundamentally bottom of the funnel, if I use the marketing parlance, right? I'm not here to discover, I'm here to search and find and
Right.
make a move, right? But I think more and more, as you see the evolution of these platforms as well, there are more display assets that are coming, right? I remember back in the day, there were only like these 9 banners which would run on the homepage, and that was it when it comes to display, right? Now, every category page or every search keyword that you do, right, there are these ton of banners which kind of create that entry point into the psyche of the shopper, right? So, yes, they are becoming more and more search oriented, right? It is about cross category searches as well, right? Am I even aware that I can find a Mukubara on Blinkit, right? So maybe I'm searching for something else which is related to travel, and Mukubara turns up as a display banner, and I kind of navigate saying, oh, the next time I need this, I know this is here. So yes, this is an evolution that is happening, and it was fundamentally powered by the fact that you can actually warehouse and show 15,000 SKUs, right? Which gives you the ability to kind of do this.
Got it. No, I think that's super, super interesting. Are there any sort of like mistakes that brands do very often on sort of quick commerce platforms that they should avoid according to your sort of experience? Because you've seen like now 300 plus brands. What are some like things to avoid?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have seen on the quick commerce side is, see, most of the teams as they evolve, right, they come from a very Amazonian first problem solving mindset, right? And in Amazon, you need to remember that you've got this 5 lakh square foot warehouse where you can keep all the stuff that you want, which is your supply chain team. And then you're optimizing for a long tail of keywords, right? Which is your performance marketing team. And both of them can operate in silos, right? So while I'm not uh, kind of reducing the complexity of the work that they're doing, the fact is that they can not be talking to each other, and it is still okay.
working, yeah.
In quick commerce, they're extremely tightly coupled, right? Because you are not keeping 30 days of inventory in a 5 lakh square foot warehouse. You're keeping 2 pieces of inventory in a 2,000 square foot dark store, which needs to be probably replenished 3 times a day, right? So you need to be extremely agile about it. But inventory is demand fulfillment, right? And advertisement or marketing is demand generation. So you're coupling a demand fulfillment with a demand generation together, right? And that is where you need to think about as a brand. And another example that I give is, think of this as a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So it starts with like, is my tummy full? Then do I have a roof on my head? And then I will think about self-actualization. Similarly over here, the first is, am I available in the right places? Then am I visible on the right keywords? And then I'm priced correctly, right? So you need to think of them in an integrated way, and you need the teams to be communicating on the same page. You cannot have them operating in silos.
That's super interesting. Are there other learnings from an advertising lens also? Because I think one of the things that a lot of brand owners say is that they're advertising on one channel, but people are ordering on, let's say, Quick as a channel, right? Because I see an ad on Instagram, I'm probably likely to, if I really like it and I want to try it, I'll order it on sort of a quick commerce platform, right? How do I sort of change marketing strategy or like figure out attribution? Like, what are the ways to navigate like new marketing in a way that I know that I'm being able to correlate that with newer platforms?
So I think it's a very relevant question, and I think this is something which the platforms are also actively looking to solve for, right? Where
Yeah,
they're kind of
attribution.
linking the attribution and the off platforms to it, right? You can always solve it through deep links, which will help create those attributions. But again, I think as a brand, it is important to recognize what is your top of the funnel, what is your bottom of the funnel, and what is the best experience that you want to provide to the shopper at the bottom of the funnel. Because again, right, as a brand, when you're running an ad on Instagram, you have all the flexibility on the world to like navigate them to your native website, to an e-commerce platform or a quick commerce platform. Now, the easy answer is send them to your native website, because you can guarantee that inventory is there, right? But the delivery experience is probably a 2 day delivery experience, which might create a customer drop off. You can navigate them to a quick commerce platform where the delivery experience will be phenomenal, but
But you
your
may
chances
lose the
of having inventory
having inventory.
is a bit risky, right? So again, it's a toss up. And again, it is about creating a lot of these integrated systems. So this is another thing that is in our product pipeline, to kind of create this integrated experience where you can kind of create a dynamic switching of sorts, right? So your primary objective is to send it to a platform which has a superior delivery experience. But if that is not available, then you can transfer it to something else, right? And I think these are the kind of ideas that we're working on right now.
No, that's super interesting. I think very, very relevant for brands, especially the point that you mentioned before this, which is around the integration of like the supply team and the ads team, because that used to not happen. Um, what has the experience been to sell to sort of brands, right? Like, are they receptive? Like, how are brands today valuing productivity? Because again, that narrative's always been broken in the air, right? Like to
Yeah.
get a brand to pay for something that is pure software feels challenging. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant question and a question that I got from so many VCs
Oh yeah, I can
saying,
imagine.
you being one of
Yeah.
them, right? Ki yaar, can you really make money by selling to the Indian diaspora, right? Because SaaS products are built to be sold to the US customers. Uh, I do feel that, see, Indian customers or Indian brands also are very discerning of value. They will happily pay for value, they will not pay for features, right? And I think that was what we inculcated as a mindset within GobbleCube, right? In fact, to that point, right, a lot of SaaS products, one of the core metrics that they observe is DAOs, right? How many daily active users do you have on the platform? What is the time that they're spending on the platform? I have a counter view to that, right? Because while I want great DAOs, I want to minimize the time spent that they have, right? Because I'm not a social media platform. I'm a platform that is fundamentally built on giving them answers. So if they're spending more time, then I'm doing something wrong, right? So I actually don't obsess about those metrics, right? One metric which we obsess about in GobbleCube is the growth that the brands have achieved since the time they moved on to GobbleCube. That number, by the way, is sitting at 220%
Oh wow.
blended average, right? And
Incredible.
that I think is where the value unlock lies, because once you create that kind of 3x growth for brands, right, 3 to 4x growth of brands, they will be more than happy to actually pay you for that, and that I think has been our journey.
Yeah. What are sales cycles like in your business?
I think for the D2C brands, it is very, very quick, right? I think they're very fast in terms of taking decisions. They're very fast in terms of realizing value. And the decision making, it's a very linear,
Binary.
binary decision making, right? So that has been generally between less than a week. I think when it comes to enterprises, I do appreciate the complexity that they have to deal with, right? There are so many stakeholders, so many entrenched processes that there needs to be a more of a confidence that they need to build. Having said that, as we speak today, 45% of the revenue for GobbleCube comes through enterprises, right? And you onboarded enterprises like Reckitt, Tata Consumer, Nivea, ITC, multiple of these MTR, right? So I think it's kind of like a testament to the value that they're seeing as well. So yes, while I do hear a lot of like very large, long sales cycle, I think it to me it boils down to the value, right? Ultimately, longer sales cycle is where people are not able to discern the value that you're offering.
Yeah. In terms of pricing for you as a platform, does that vary by a number of SKUs, by revenue of the group? Like, how do you sort of like figure out that, or number of features on the platform? How is that governed?
So I think we've tried to keep it very simple, and I know a lot of SaaS products are built this way.
Yeah.
I have again a counter view to that, because I believe that if my fundamental strength lies in creating value for the brand, if I start paywalling their ability to solve problems, I'm not creating value for them, right? Which is why for me the way we've kept the pricing is very, very simple. I will not charge you for additional number of dark stores, additional number of SQs, anything like that, additional number of logins, right? I don't want to disenfranchise your teams from coming onto my platform, right? I will, and the way we build the structure or the architecture of our entire product is it amortizes costs, right? So that I can give you this seamless experience of problem solving so that you can derive value. So we've kept a very simple pricing where brand can then just come in, not worry about, oh, if I add these like 5 more localities, my price will go up. Should I do that? Should I not do that? That is the most unproductive thought process that they can go through, and I want to eliminate it.
So, what's the pricing then?
So the pricing is a pure subscription-based pricing when it comes to the digital share product,
Okay.
a usage-based pricing when it comes to the performance marketing product, and basically that's it.
Got it. So, I could be a large brand or a small brand, but I get to pay the same.
Yeah. So again, depends on the number
for
of
the
brands
first
that you're
one.
right, because the large brands will have a conglomerate of
Correct.
brands,
So
right?
they
So
pay
they'll
per brand, I'm guessing.
per brand, right? But as a per brand basis, it is very, very flat.
Got it.
But
Very
of course, we've
interesting.
got growth partnerships. So for young brands which are starting out, right?
Sure.
We also offer this growth partnership where we kind of partner with them, because for me, it's about making them succeed,
Yeah.
right?
And the network effects then.
The network effects kind of kick in. And again, you need to have a growth mindset. You need to partner with brands. You need to help them succeed. And I think good things follow.
Got it. No, that's awesome. On the brand side, there's also this narrative that it is difficult to profitably grow on some of these channels, right? Because I mean, margin structures are tough. Platforms control a lot of they have a lot of buying power today because that's where they are getting all the demand. All of the tough margins that they charge are very, very interesting to sort of debate. What has your learning been on that front? Are brands able to profitably grow on these platforms?
Yeah, so let's think of it. Let's take a step back and think of it, right? If I am a young brand which is starting out, I've got two options. I can either go online and sell on these quick commerce platforms, or I can go into the offline space and sell in the GT, right? I think if you ask me personally, cracking that GT distribution channel
Crazy.
is not going to happen.
It's a nightmare.
Right? It's an absolute nightmare. So this gives me that opportunity. Now, the onus is on me to play that game smartly, right? How smartly can I actually see what is working, what is not working, where should my investments go, right? Of course, I will do a minimum commitment of marketing spends when I come onto the platform, but am I smart about it, or have I just committed and I'm spending because I've made that commitment, right? So again, it becomes a question of playing it smart, right? Ultimately, as you play it smart and you start growing, right, it gives you a better negotiation, right? It gives you a better voice on the table to renegotiate those terms. But you need to survive smartly to get back on that negotiation table.
Got it. So you have to be tactical about some of this and like
Absolutely.
just really navigate it on a contextual basis, I suppose.
Yeah, it's about. I think the brands who play it smartly will have outsized returns over here, right? If you don't play it smartly, then what can you do, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is where the differentiation is going to get created. I think whether it is about new age brands taking on legacy brands, or whether it is within the new age brands as well, right? I think what quick commerce is saying is that, see, I have laid out this playing field in front of you. You need to be smart in terms of identifying which battles should you pick and which battles should you kind of procrastinate.
Got it. Got it.
I think
Super
that's
interesting.
where the decision making engine
Yeah.
becomes important, right? How do you decide what are the important battles that you want to pick?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so many brands are, in fact, like coming up with SKUs with the right margin profiles for such platforms as well. Like they're being very
Yes.
mindful about some of these things.
Correct.
So I think that's super interesting. In your experience, I mean, what are other things? I mean, again, let's say I'm a brand, I'm doing about 4-5 crores a month right now. What are other things I need to be careful about, either regarding growth, either regarding optimization of channel? What is it that I need to be mindful considering you deal with sort of these brands day in, day out? What should I keep in mind?
Yeah, I think, see, the basic ones are there, right? Okay, I am committing to a certain, let's say, for example, marketing spends. Do I have the right availability to
Right.
push that, right? Because again, as a brand, if you're running low on inventory, you will have a certain organic demand, and if you're running ads, you will cannibalize that organic demand and push it in organically, right? So you need to be smart about some of those things. You need to have the competition in your rear view mirror to say, okay, are they going aggressive? Do I need to recalibrate? An example I generally give is like an F1 race, right? It doesn't matter how many laps you've got left in your tires. If your competition is trying to pit and undercut you, you need to probably pit as well. So you need to be smart about that, right? But that is one part of the equation. I think this gives you percentage outcomes, right? Percentage growth outcomes. The ones which give you multiple of times growth outcomes are the ones where you're able to nail micro categories to say, okay, these are the ones that I'm absolutely going doubling down on. Because I think those are the new category or micro categories that are opening up, right? And as a young brand, right, you're not married to anything, right? You don't like, let me take the example of Godesi, right? They started out as a candy brand, right? Today they are a sweets brand, right? And they have done it phenomenally. I think Smith and team have done a phenomenal job when it comes to that, right? Uh, helps that they were working with us. But yeah, I mean, there's so many other success stories, right?
Yeah.
Again, without naming a lot of other brands which we're working with, identifying those white spaces, right? Because that's where the big growth opportunities lie.
When you started like in 2022, did you imagine this would be this big? Like if you had to take a shot in the dark, where does like quick commerce land 5 years from today? Where will brand stand? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think the easy answer to say is yes, I foresaw all those. But the
Yes.
honest answer is that probably not.
Or
I
maybe
think we
this
just
fast?
exactly maybe this fast, right? I think I go back to the fact that I, as a person, just enjoy building things, right? So for me, it was just the fun of building those things and the fun of brands. Like what I genuinely thrive on is when a brand comes back and says, "Phod diya."
Huh.
Right? Maza aa gaya, right? I think those are the aha moments that I live for.
Yeah.
Everything else for me is just an outcome,
Yeah.
right? Uh, to your point of how the future looks like, I think the future to me looks hyperlocal, right? So, and I think a lot of times when you're building, right, as a founder, you also need to be clear on what you need to take a leap of faith and you need to imagine how the future looks for and build for that.
Yeah.
Because if you're building for what exists today, you're already too late to the
Yeah,
party.
you missed the bus.
You miss the bus, right? So for me, the future looks hyperlocal. Now, whether everything will be delivered to 10 in 10 minutes, 5 years down the line, probably not, right? But will anything be delivered when you're waiting for 3 days? Again, apart from furniture, probably not as well, right?
Yeah.
So that means that the boundary condition, right? You might want your chips delivered to you in 10 minutes, but maybe you're willing to wait 30 minutes for an air purifier, right? And maybe you're willing to wait 30 minutes for, let's say, for example, that kurta that you have ordered, right? And maybe, like, let's say, for example, something which is in even larger appliance, right? You're willing to wait 2 hours. But the fact that a 2 hour delivery cannot happen with the traditional supply chain architecture of centralized warehouses is a established fact. And if that is the case, then what you're building for is in the right direction. And that's how I think about it.
Very interesting. I think that makes like total sense. In terms of verticalization of some of these, right? Like, are you like, do you have an opinion on whether some of these quick marketplaces will also get verticalized? There's a lot of chatter around other funded players, right? And since you had a sort of like inside view, any of those could have also been options. Maybe as a platform, you grow into brands who are on other vertical platforms like apparel. There are multiple.
Yes.
BPC. There are multiple coming up. There are first cry equivalents coming up. How do you look at that landscape?
I think there is definitely space for vertical marketplaces, right? Because humans fundamentally, like, while 15,000 SKUs might sound like a large number, Amazon warehouses approximately 2 lakh warehouses, SKUs, right? So humans fundamentally are driven by more, right? I think this is a philosophy that Bezos has prophesied as well in one of his earlier shareholder letters, right? That the 3 pillars of retail are faster, cheaper, and more variety, right? So I think more variety is a problem that vertical marketplaces will solve, right? I think quick commerce, as we see it today with the Blinkit, Instamart, Zeptos of the world, will operate in the head. So they will go to the tail categories, but the head brands within that. So they will keep a very long tail category, but they'll probably place 3 brands in that category. They will not place the 30th brand in that category. For the 30th brand, I think the verticalized marketplaces will start making more sense. And I think that's how the cookie will crumble. At least that's my personal perspective.
And then you as a business will then empower those brands across all marketplaces. Is there a viewpoint that you need to have, or do you like
I
go
think
with the
for
flow?
us, we just go horizontal, right? I mean, like horizontal in terms of covering all the marketplaces, right?
Correct.
Because
You don't have to be agnostic.
I take a brand first view, right? If a brand comes to me and says this is a problem to solve, I say yes, let's solve it together.
In the last sort of like, I mean, in the 1 year that you have seen, are there any sort of like things that you feel you could have done better but didn't? It despite, I know, like, I mean, last I spoke, I know you've grown revenue almost 2x since we last spoke, which is maybe a quarter back. But everything is going well. But what could you have changed? And then we'll get to the good parts as well. But what are the things that you would have done differently?
I think this is the most relevant question because I think this is, as a founder, you need to continuously keep questioning yourself on, right? Yeah, I think a lot with how AI is evolving, right, and the speed at which it is evolving, it is kind of fundamentally question. It's you should be questioning a lot of beliefs that existed, right? Like a core belief for a product first company was that you need to solve one thing and you need to solve it really well, right? That was the philosophy with which pretty much all the great product companies have been built, right? I think today we are living in an age of compounded products, right? Because if you can fundamentally like use a cursor and code in a few seconds, right? You should be able to push these systems to architecture for you as well, right? Code is the lowest level of problem that you can solve, right? System architectures are higher order problems that you can solve with this, right? And we have to continuously push ourselves to think about these things because we need to be creating compounded products. We need to be thinking more on the paradigm shift piece, right? One of the most beautiful papers that I've read on this is a paper by Donella Meadows. I think you would have read it as well. It is a 20-page paper, and it kind of like absolutely blows your mind about how you should think about paradigm shifts, right? And I think that is something where we can do a much better job of how do we think more in terms of a paradigm shift point of view. How does this product completely upend the problem that the brand is trying to solve?
Yeah, no, that's super interesting to understand. What are the good things? Like, how does a company which is doing software for sort of brands grow this fast? What do you think you've gotten right? What are learnings that you've carried forward? I think one of the things I was discussing with you before we started is also, I think there's now going to be a theme of how operators such as yourself, who've been a part of sort of moonshot journeys in the ecosystem, build their own sort of companies by like starting up, right? What is the advantage when an operator like you starts up at day zero? How do you then evolve? In your journey also, you had to like spend a year to find the product that would like blitz scale and really take off. What's that been like?
Absolutely. So I think to your first question, I think what has went right is the philosophy or the mindset that we had to listen to the customer, right? I'm not here to build a feature. I'm here to solve a problem, right? How can I listen to this problem and figure out a solution, right, which solves that problem for the user? I think that has something which has really resonated with people, right? Which is why we get so much of brand love, where brands are willing to talk great things about GobbleCube as well. So I think that's something which has genuinely worked well for us. So as an operator, right, I think one of the things that again I will go back and I think I've said that, but I cannot emphasize this enough, is I've been truly blessed to be working in a startup, which is Grofers, where the founders, Albi and Saurabh, pushed us to operate as owners, right? I remember a lot of conversations when I would go to them and say, "Yaar, what should be done over here?" And the simple answer would be, you spent a week thinking about this. I've spent 5 minutes. You should be able to come up with a better answer, right? And that helps you grow as an owner, right? And once you get that ownership, it gives you the ability to act as a founder, grow into a founder, which was the conversation Albi and I had when I was leaving. But when you become a founder, right, there is another interesting journey that you make, because there is the first 0 to 1 journey that you make, right, where you're operating both as a founder as well as an operator, right? But as you hit that product market fit, then you start expanding, you're solving multiple problems, and you need to build a team of multiple owners in the system. And I think one of the most important thing is to recognize that you need to get owners and not employees in the system. And you need to give them the right ownership, you need to give them the right autonomy to actually go and unleash themselves, right? I think that is the difference that I feel exists. The other thing that I would say, that while I know everybody loves talking about product market fit and it is like the biggest buzzword in town, I personally think it is overrated.
Okay.
Right? Because I think what you're truly looking for as a founder is problem market fit. The moment you find a problem market fit, the journey to go from problem market fit to product market fit is actually a process. And it is easier to follow processes. It is more difficult to find that magic of the problem market fit. So I think again, that was something which we doubled down on. And as you said, right, we took that journey of a year, because what we wanted to do was spend our time, not rush into a solution. Because the moment you rush into a solution, you get married to it and you start justifying it, right? So don't keep any bias on the table. Go with an open mindset. Find the problem market fit where your customer is jumping off rooftops saying this is a painkiller that I need to be solved right now, and then go for the journey.
Got it. Ancillarily, I mean, operator to founder also is a transition of like resource and scale, right? Like talk about like Blinkit resource, Blinkit scale, very different. Then you come
Yes.
down to like, starting from zero. How do you sort of like adjust the two? Like what is the environment change contextualized for us?
At Blinkit, where we were always pushed to operate as like you have no money in the bank, right?
But you
Because
did. Like it's
we did
easier
it.
said than done, right?
It is
Like
easier said and done, but I think it's about creating that discipline. Of course, see, there are certain hard decisions, right? We had a very like I have this history of like whenever I start making a good salary, I tend to take more risks in life. So I left my investment bank salary, came to Blinkit or Grofers. Then at Blinkit, all of us, right? Me, Shri, Nitesh, all of us left a very well-paying job, worked as founders with no salary for 2 years, right? And I think that a lot of times, right, as a founder, you need to commit to certain things, right? And you need to be together for the right reasons. So, something which we also did when we were coming together is ask a simple question to all. I still remember like it was yesterday. The three of us were sitting in a room. We had a five-seater room. That was all that we had. It had a pillar in the middle. So we said, कि यार, so they came and said, कि, sir, ये pillar है, तो 6 सीट नहीं, 5 सीट का पैसा लगेगा. We said, best है. So we were sitting in that room and we said, why do we want to do this? Before we commit to GobbleCube, why do we want to do this? And we said each one of us will write down the answer on a sheet of paper and then compare our answers, right? And the answer that came out unanimously, Touchwood, was that we understand something which we believe is going to reshape how commerce happens, and want to make a difference. None of us wrote that we were in it for the money or the fame or anything, right? And I think it is important as founders to come together with that coherence of mindset, right? And once you do, right, you're not double doubting your decisions, right? And I think that's what worked in our favor.
That's amazing. I want to double click on my last question and maybe go deeper on what's working and maybe the Blinkit journey as well. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Blinkit, Zomato are arguably one of the largest sort of successes, perhaps the large, quantifiably, of course, the largest success in the ecosystem. What does it get right? Like, what does it get right that other people don't know? And in your journey, also beyond listening to customers in the GobbleCube journey, like, what would you attribute the speed of sort of success to?
Yes.
What would you attribute maybe just capturing a wave which is like difficult to sort of otherwise capture? Maybe both of those, if we can take a minute more to answer on a deeper level.
So let's start with the Blinkit journey, right? See, again, as a company, right, it is so much easier to optimize for your own metrics, your own profitability, your own things, rather than thinking what the customer expects of you, right? And I think that is a trap which a lot of companies fall into. The question that we asked at Blinkit when we were transitioning from the e-grocery model to the quick com model is, what defines magic from the mindset of the customer, right? At what boundary condition does this start feeling like magic to the customer? And again, we went back to data, right? So we started observing the retention pattern of customers by the time of delivery that we took, right? And interestingly, the inflection point was 15 minutes. So when the deliveries, and this is millions of orders that were delivered, right? When the delivery was taking more than 15 minutes, the retention rates were phenomenally low. And when it was less than 15 minutes, and that was important because the competition at that point of time was offering a 30 to 45-minute delivery, right? So it is very easy to say, oh, let me do the 30 to 45-minute delivery as well. It will be better from a unit economics point of view. I can possibly batch orders, I can bring down my costs. But no, we took the hard call, right? We said, let's solve for the shopper expectation. And if I get the shopper expectation right, everything else will fall into place. Because at some point, I will hit a scale of the number of orders where I don't need to care about the fact that I need to batch orders.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's something, it's just a small example, but it shows the mindset with which Blinkit built those things out, right? The second thing which was very important is build systems for scale, right? I might be doing 100,000 orders today, but I'll build a system that is scalable to a 10 million order level, right? And I think those are the two, the systems and the mindset, I think are the two things. And those were my learnings which I took to GobbleCube as well, right? Even when I was working with two brands, the way I built the system, the architecture was that when I had 300 brands, the same architecture is going to be. And that's exactly how it played out. I had Snowflake when I had 2 brands. I have Snowflake when I have 300 brands, and it is working like a charm, right? So I think that was one. The other is listen to the customer, understand their problem and solve the problem. If the problem is I want a delivery in 10 minutes, I solve that as Blinkit, right? If the problem is that I need to figure out what I can do to grow, I don't want to show you like these Power BI dashboards, right? Because you are here to ask a question and I need to be answering that question. I think that's the philosophy that we've imbibed at GobbleCube also.
That's super interesting. Um, Finally, on the company building piece, trade-offs are like decision making as a founder is very very important. I'm guessing since you're working with these brands, you're getting all of these requests to do that, to do this, to do multiple different things that can be attractive sometimes. What is your mental model to launch something versus like there's a fine line between knowing what you want to do versus listening to the customer, right?
Correct.
If you start listening to everything, like there's no direction, I'm assuming. What is the nuance in that sort of learning?
Yeah, it's a very good point, and uh, it is one of the most pertinent questions to answer to segregate yourselves from a product mindset and a services mindset, right? If I keep just listening to the customer and just delivering what he's asked for, right, then I'm a services mindset,
Correct.
right? But if I use, and one of the frameworks that I use is the jobs to be done framework, right? When you ask me a question, I will not just say, okay, you've asked me for this data, let me go run a SQL and get you this data, right? I'll say, what is the job that you're trying to achieve? It's the same as like a guy who's kind of going around and saying, I want a hammer, I want a hammer. Why do you want a hammer? Because I want to drive a nail into the wall, because I want to put a TV over there, because I want to watch a match, right? So the job to be done is to enjoy a match, right? But you're looking for a hammer. But if you get to this, then the commonality starts kicking in. Because ultimately, what every brand is trying to solve for is growth and profitability, right? So if I can figure out these questions and map them to the jobs that they're trying to achieve, then it helps me build a product rather than run a services.
Very interesting. No, this is amazing. I think we've covered a lot of ground on the company, on quick commerce. On the quick piece, like one of the things that, again, I think is a commonly thought of thing amongst consumers is this like a very tier one trend? What is the learning there? Because, I mean, now we're seeing depth across spaces. What are you seeing?
It's absolutely a very good question. I think we also keep questioning this a lot, but the data is phenomenal, right? I was just looking at the data the other day. Uh, these QCOM platforms have reached almost like 150 to 200 cities, depending on the platform itself, right? The most interesting thing is that the cities that were launched in the year of 2025, so barely like 9 months in, right? They account for 15% of the sales of the platform.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's almost become like an event. I've seen so many of my friends coming from these small towns who brag about, "अरे मेरे शहर में तो Blinkit आ गया है, मेरे शहर में Zepto आ गया है," right? So I think it's kind of becoming one of those things, but it is not just about bragging rights. It is also about genuine demand. Right? 15% is not a mean number. And these are tier 3 cities because the tier 1 and tier 2 have already been done for in the last
Top
2
50
years.
is done.
Top 50 is done, right?
In
So
fact,
this
next
is the
150 is also
next
done.
150, and that is where 15% of the sales is coming, right? And that's a huge opportunity from a brand's point of view.
Yeah.
Because again, if I am, let's say for example, a D2C brand, right? There is no way I am going to a Patiala or a Muradabad and figuring out
Yeah.
my distribution over there, right? I'm getting this opportunity. I need to capitalize.
No, that's amazing to hear. No, that's awesome. I think we've covered a bunch of ground. Maybe towards the end, I want to ask a couple of questions specifically to you. One of the things we often mention there is, let's say, if you weren't doing what you are doing today, and in a world, let's say, where Blinkit, let's say, QCOM didn't exist, what would you be doing instead? Not as a startup founder. What is the other side of Manas that we don't know?
I think I'll just be chilling.
Okay.
Yeah, because I adhere to a philosophy which I once discussed with Saurabh, where he told me boredom is a great motivator. And I was like, I don't get this. What does this mean? He's like, yeah, see, you when you're working, right, you keep fantasizing about these things. I want to go to the hills, I want to go to the beaches, right? It's like do as much of that as possible, right? To a point that you want to kill yourself if you do more of this. And that is where you'll genuinely get motivated to solve a problem. And by the way, that's exactly what the three of us did.
Oh,
So
wow.
when we left our job, the next 3 to 6 months, we were just like
Traveling.
traveling, right? I was traveling in India, Nitesh was traveling in Southeast Asia, Shri was in the US. At one point of time, I was like, yeah, let's get back to the drawing book and figure things out. But yeah, to your specific questions, honestly, are like as a founder, you become so engrossed that it is difficult to imagine a life outside of this, right?
Fair.
So yeah, I think I don't have an answer to that, honestly.
No, fair enough. If I had to ask a group of your friends to describe you, what would they say?
Honestly, I don't know. I would love to have that answer. But yeah, I think, see, for us, it's just about like curious, right? Always trying to understand what is going on, right? Uh, at least that is my version of that. So take that with
You'll
a pinch
probably
of
ask
salt.
them.
Yeah, you should probably ask them because then you'll get the more juicy stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I've realized, and this is a question I end up asking a bunch of founders, is everybody has this one like sort of superpower beyond curiosity, because you just mentioned that. If you had to like attribute one thing to yourself that you uniquely do better than most, what would that look like?
Empathy. I do feel that whenever you're trying to solve a problem, right, uh, you are not doing that alone. You're doing it with a bunch of people, and you need to be a good listener, and you need to have empathy towards them, right? Because that is where you truly create a team of missionaries dedicated to a cause. If you're just saying, okay, this is how you do it, and this is my way or the highway, then you're creating employees, right? Who are saying, okay, I've been told that I need to do this, so I better do this, right? I think empathy is very important. And empathy, both from a point of view of your colleagues, your team members, and the brands. I think that is something that I have always tried to push into the culture that we are building as an organization.
That's amazing. Curiosity and empathy are a great way to come to the last question. The last question is a stereotypical one, but we usually go to a significant time in the person's life. So let's say when you were joining Grofers, right? If you could go back 2016, this is early 2016, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
and you had the opportunity to tell yourself something, this is to just gain from the hindsight that you have developed, what would that look like? What would you tell yourself on sort of March 2016 or whenever you joined Grofers? What does that look like? Why would you tell yourself that? And by extension, what can we learn?
So if you
Yeah.
need to say the current self tells
Yes.
that, right? I think you will, the only thing that I will tell myself is that you will learn something, right? Whether you succeed or you fail, you will come out with some experiences that will make you a better person. They will make you a better human being and possibly a better resource for the future, right? And I think it is all about having a learning mindset. That is why I got bored to death and I wanted to kill myself, because as a trader, you're not learning anything, right? You're taking a punt on the market every day. No offense. Uh, Most of my best friends are traders till date. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just stasis, right? That curiosity, that learning was not there. And that is where I took that leap of faith.
That's amazing. Learning being a great note to end on. This has been an
Perfect.
absolute pleasure, Manas. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I think I was really curious to understand everything that's happening from your vantage point, because you get to understand what a platform really sees, and that's
Yeah.
very like valuable for anybody who's building in this space. And I think we got a chance to uncover so much of that. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for an incredible conversation.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me, Jivraj. I think I've been a big fan of how you've kind of genuinely created this ecosystem and community. So big fan, but yeah, thank you so much for having me, and wonderful. I genuinely enjoyed the conversation. It made me think about a lot of things as well, which I'll go
so
back
glad.
and go dwell deeper into.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Manas.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.